Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our live webcast. We are promoting today my brand new book called Rare, Medium, or Done Well. It is not a recipe book, but it is a great recipe for life, and I hope that you're going to enjoy the book. I'm really convinced you are. This is the 13th book I've done. Frankly, it may be my favorite. Just well may be. Why don't you read it and you can decide, but here's why I think you'll like it. Not a political book. In fact, this book has been endorsed by people as diverse as the far left Van Jones, all the way to people on the right, my friends like Tony Perkins and Jim Garlow and Rick Santorum and a whole host of people, Star Parker and others. So just to give you an idea, this book is more about how to live life, how to make decisions that when it's all over and this life is concluded, your life has been done well. And that's what it's about. Not a life that was rare, that was not quite ready, not a life that was just medium or mediocre or uninspiring, but a life that was done well. It's also a book that's great for a gift. Nobody will be offended to get this because it's not a book about left or right or liberal or conservative or Democrat or Republican. And it's also a book that would be a great study book. Questions at the end of each chapter just to kind of prompt some thought and discussion. And by the way, while we're talking, I'm signing book plates right here that will go in the autographed versions of Rare, Medium, or Done Well. I'll also be answering some questions that you're sending in, and the signed copies, if you want one, it's on your screen, but it's at premiercollectibles.com/Huckabee. premiercollectibles.com/Huckabee. What a great gift idea, right? You get a autographed book. Even without the autograph, the book's worth having. But, as you're seeing, I'm signing these things right now, and we'll sign a bunch more. So maybe one of these is the one that you're going to get for Christmas, or give for Christmas. I hope it is. This book came at a time in my life when I was thinking very seriously about what matters. I've done some various things, from political life to broadcasting, and even a period of my life spent in the world of the church. And in all of those things, sometimes you just reflect and step back and say, what matters? What's going to last beyond me, if anything? And that's what I hope that this book will help you to think about as well. So, all right. I'm going to find out, let's see, what kind of questions we have. Here's one that comes from Ricky from my home state of Arkansas, Benton, Arkansas. Ricky, here's what you want to know. Will you be coming back to Arkansas to visit in the near future? Actually, we still have a place there, so I come back as often as I can. Now the question, it would be great to jam with you again. I think I know who that is. And boy, would it be great to play some music with you again, because I got to know who that has to be. Thank you, and God bless. Hope you enjoy the book. Here's one from Melanie from Pooler, Georgia. Says, what can religion do to help heal the divide in our country today? Well, we can't be reconciled to each other if we're not reconciled to God. So the fact is, without a spiritual reconciliation that happens in our own hearts, we're not going to see any type of reconciliation in this country. But it really does start with you and with me. I think some people, this is kind of where I want to make this book go. We tend to get too involved in our political opinions, and to the point that we forget everything else. We don't listen to music. We don't enjoy sports. We don't take walks. We don't just spend some time reading stories to grandkids. We're so focused on what makes us angry rather than what makes life worth living. So what I hope, Melody, is that this book will help you to think about the things that do bring us together. And as I say, if I can write a book that has the equal accolade of a Van Jones and a Eric Metaxas, there must be something in there that's worth reading. All right, here's one. I guess I need to keep signing these, don't I? Yeah, I'm getting the high sign. Hey, you're supposed to be signing. Because after all, if I sign these and it goes in your book, you can say you saw it when it happened. Let's see, here's one from Minnesota. It's cold up there. But this is Jake from Cottage Grove, Minnesota. What was your favorite thing about being a governor? I'll be honest with you, the favorite thing I had to do as governor was the fact that it was a very pragmatic job. It was not so much ideological. And I could take on an issue like road construction and within a few months drive on roads that were way better because I'd worked on it. Or see people get a better paycheck from a job that we worked hard to bring to our state. And I'll tell you, there was a great thrill in going to a ribbon cutting for a factory or a job site and seeing that people were going to go in there and get the biggest paycheck of their lives, take that home to their families. And that was extraordinarily rewarding. It was also rewarding to do things like make access for health care for children whose parents worked hard and made too much money to qualify for Medicaid, but they really didn't make enough money to be able to afford private health insurance. And that was a big thrill for me. So there were a lot of things. Best job I ever had. Loved every bit of it. Here's a question. How often do you speak to your daughter, Sarah? It's hard to watch her under the constant criticism by the media. Or it says, is it hard to watch her? Well, people say to me sometimes, does it make you nervous when you watch your daughter go into the White House press room? And my answer is generally, yeah, it does make me nervous for those reporters who think they're going to trip her up or catch her. Because that's, in my view, one sharp young lady. And, of course, I'm as about as objective as about my daughter Sarah as the New York Times is maybe about the president. But she's a good kid. It helped her that she had two very mean older brothers, and I think they made her tough. And so it has served her well. But I'm proud of her. I'm proud of all three of my children. She's certainly maybe the most recognized of the three, the most famous. But I will tell you this, you know, she loves what she does. She feels like it's a service to her country. And I'm just grateful that she is able to do that job and do it well. As to how often I talk to her, I'd say not often enough. Maybe more importantly, I don't get to talk to her three kids enough. But we'll see each other from time to time. And I actually do talk to her fairly regularly when she's on her way early in the morning headed to the White House. All right, any more books on the horizon? I don't know. Depends on how this one does. So you got to help me out here. Want to buy this book for Christmas gifts. And I'm being half facetious. I love to write. It's great therapy for me. This book was very therapeutic, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes I write, and I've written several books that are maybe issue-oriented, or I'd call them maybe political books per se, and I enjoy those. But there are a lot of people who are doing that. What I loved about this book, and what gave me an extraordinary sense of pleasure in doing it, was that it took me out of this contentious political environment and caused me to sit down and say, what's important in life? What really, truly matters? 100 years from now, what difference will I have made? And how can I do a better job of making that difference, leaving a legacy, leaving something behind that will impact my children, my grandchildren, and future generations in a positive way. And it doesn't matter who we are. You don't have to be a former governor or have run for president or be an author of books. I know deep down you want to leave something behind so that maybe the great-great-grandchildren that you'll never know will one day come by your graveside or will say to your the folks after you, what was he like? And the answer that they hear is an answer that only you can give them. What are you preparing for? So that's why I think you'll enjoy the book, because it's very personal. I say it's an inspirational book, and that it's designed to make you reflect upon the value of faith. It is unapologetically a book that is based on the biblical principles that I've tried to live my life by, and what I would call eternal values rather than temporal values. So for all of those reasons, I think it's the kind of book that causes people to stop and reflect and maybe think deeply about what's important in life. Let me go to some more questions here. Here's one. How can politicians use Twitter to engage with their constituents? Do you think it's an effective or harmful medium? Good question. I personally have a lot of fun with Twitter. I think it can be useful. Because of the brevity of the message, it's easily misunderstood. I use it, quite frankly, as a form of amusement, just so you know. If you follow my Twitter account, there's like 1.2 million people who do. What I find is there are a lot of people who don't have a sense of humor. I mean, they are angry about everything, and it doesn't matter what I say. Their heads explode with bitterness and anger, and side of me says, chill, man, quit following me. If it's ruining your day like this, for heaven's sakes, let it go. Go find somebody that will at least put a smile on your face, because frankly, that's a big chunk of what I like to do with Twitter. I'll poke at people just for the fun at it on issues, but I do it with tongue in cheek. But I find that sometimes the reactions are indicative of a very angry world. Let me let you in on my philosophy of life a little bit that you'll see reflected in this book, Rare, Medium, and Done Well. It's throughout the book. Here it is. Take God seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. I'm afraid a lot of people have lived their lives just opposite of that. They don't think about God at all, but they take themselves, their every opinion, their attitudes, their positions in life with the seriousness of God Himself. I think that's a big mistake. So if that offends you, this may not be the book for you. But if you're a person who has a sense of humor, because there's humor throughout the book, I wanted it to be personable and entertaining. I wanted it to be a fun book to read, not one that you have to go back and read the pages over and over. It's an easy read intentionally, one, so I can understand it, but two, so that you will enjoy it. It's not written for scholars and academics. So if you're afraid that this book is something that is written to impress college professors, you'd be wrong. It is not. I doubt many college professors will read it, and it doesn't bother me if they don't. What I do care about is just people who love God, who love their families, and who want to live their lives in a meaningful way. The subtitle of the book is Making the Most of Your Life. And so, quite frankly, if you're a person that wants to make the most of your life, I think this book is exactly the kind of book you would love and would enjoy being a part of. All right, let's see what else we've got here. How did you come up with the name of the title of the book? Are you a big cook? Truth is, I do like to cook, mostly outdoor stuff. I'm mostly, a grill guy and meat and potatoes sort of fella, steaks. I love to use an electric smoker, and I do ribs and pork butt. But let me be very clear. This book has nothing to do with recipes, cooking, or eating. The title, Rare, Medium, or Done Well, is kind of a play on words. And as I said a few minutes ago, it's about, do you live your life in a way that if your life was a steak, would it be rare? Would it be uncooked, unfinished? Sadly, a lot of people live their lives unfinished. And at the end, even their family and friends gather around and just kind of say, he coulda, he shoulda, he woulda, but he never did. Gosh, what a sad way to close the chapter on your life. Then there are some people, and their life is like a medium steak. And it's neither hot nor cold. It's just kind of lukewarm. And if you've ever read the New Testament book of Revelation, you probably know that lukewarm is not exactly where a believer wants to be. Jesus even said, I wish you were hot or cold, but because you're neither, you're lukewarm, I'll spew you out of my mouth. Now, I'm not saying a medium steak is a bad thing, but a medium life, a mediocre life, is not where you want to be. A life that really was not negative, didn't really do any bad stuff. You never went to prison, never had to go to rehab, you weren't a deadbeat, but your life was mediocre. By mediocre, I don't mean how much money you had. I know some very wealthy people who will die rare, uncooked, unprepared. They're wealthy, famous, but not ready to close the chapter on their life. I know people that will live their lives and they'll live it with mediocrity. And they could have been living their lives with exceptionalism and great sense of accomplishment, but they just didn't because they never fully applied themselves. What about if you live your life well done? What does that mean? It means that at the end of your life, you're going to hear 6 words that your Creator says about you. And I've said many, many times in many different places that there's one thing you need to hope for at the end of your life, and it's that you hear these 6 words: well done, good and faithful servant. I don't care if you're rich or you're poor. I don't care if you're black, you're white. Doesn't matter if you're male or female. Doesn't matter if you live in the country or you live in the city. If at the end of your life, God, your Creator, who knows you best and who loves you most, if He looks at you and says, well done, good and faithful servant, your life's a success. Because the New York Times is not your ultimate evaluator of life. And to that I would say, thank the Lord. My life is not ultimately determined by how a group of talking heads will speak about me on CNN. Again, thank the Lord. My life and its evaluation, and whether it was lived rare, medium, or done well, is ultimately not even going to be decided by my family and friends. I'd like to think they'd give me a fairly decent evaluation, but it's going to be evaluated by the one person who knows me best, and that's God. And what I hope He says of me is, well done. How about you? That's really what the book is all about. Let me remind you that if you'd like to get a copy, these are the signed copies, and I'm signing the book plates for them now. You can go to premiercollectibles.com/Huckabee. premiercollectibles.com/Huckabee. Of course, the book is available in bookstores and all over the place, online retailers, but the autographed copies are only available at premiercollectibles.com/Huckabee. What a great Christmas idea. I mean, who needs another ham, huh? What if you have employees and you're wondering what to get them? I think this is the best idea I could give you. Give them this book. If you've got friends, family members, co-workers, this is a great book. And maybe just one to buy a stack of them, and from time to time you're going to encounter somebody who needs some encouragement, who needs just to be reminded of what life is about, what matters, and quite frankly, be reminded of what doesn't matter. Because sometimes I think people get all worked up and they get angry, they get excited, they're filled with stress and tension, their blood pressure's 300 over 200 because they've never stepped back and said, what matters, what's important. What I do in this book is try to help you and me focus on what's important. And that's why the subtitle is Making the Most of Your Life. All right, let me dig around here. I'm going to go down a little further down the list. Here's somebody from Shreveport, Louisiana, not that far from where I grew up in South Arkansas. This is Brian. He says, can you put to my friend Brian, 65-year, I think this is what it says, attorney in Shreveport, who grew up in Fayetteville, you would be at my dream lunch. So I guess you're asking me to have lunch with you. Okay, well, maybe we can make that happen. But you got to pay, and we're going to someplace expensive if that happens. I love this one. How did you get such a great daughter? This is from Shirley. Shirley, look at her dad. What did you expect? Okay, maybe that was not the best way I could answer that. Look at her mother. Now there's where the greatness comes from. And what do you think should be done about election fraud? Well, I think people should have elected me. I tell people all the time, Donald Trump was not my first choice for president because I was my first choice for president. And that's the only political thing I will say today. How's that? Fair enough? Okay, maybe we're going to get some more here coming in. We've got a bunch. Based on your experience as a governor, do you think there's anything California can do to reduce future wildfires? In the midst of the wildfires, I certainly don't want to be overly critical, and I want to say to you, I'm the son of a firefighter. My father was a career fireman in Hope, Arkansas. But one thing I know about fires, wildfires, both from being the son of a firefighter as well as being the governor of a heavily forested state in which forestry and wood products were a huge part of our economy, is that it's very, very important to manage a forest and not let the forest manage you. There have been, over the past several decades, some who believe that you should never cut trees, you should never have controlled burns, you should never have, for example, areas where you go in and you trim out the trees because, after all, you save every tree. Well, here's the problem with that. If trees are not managed, and by the way, we have more trees, more forested land in America than we've ever had in our history. So for those who think we've clear-cutted vast portions of the country and no longer are there places where there's forest, that's just not true. But if you don't manage it and you have trees on the ground that die, two things can happen. One, insects and bugs get in, and then they infect the other trees, and that becomes an entirely diseased forest. And the other is with dead wood on the ground, that is fuel for a wildfire. And with nothing between trees except dead wood, it's just like lighting one tree after another. And in dry conditions with winds, it's just dangerous. I'm not saying that that's all of what's happened in California, because I think there are many, many factors there. But it is a great reminder that forest management is very critical, and sometimes controlled burns. Boy, that's a way off the subject from this book, isn't it? Rare, medium, or done well, but who knew you were going to get a lesson in forest management as well as how to live a life. Okay, so let me see. We've got a reminder, premiercollectibles.com/Huckabee. I got to keep reminding you of that, because that's where you get one of these signed books, because that's what I'm doing. When I'm looking down, not trying to ignore you, but I want to make sure I sign my name on the right slot here. So these go in your book as an autographed copy. What a great Christmas idea. Wish I'd have thought of that myself. But you can get the autographed versions at premiercollectibles.com/Huckabee. Now, the book is available, of course, all over the place, and I certainly advise you, because it's my book, you ought to buy a box of them. I mean, a bunch of them, because these are great gifts. And if they're not stocking stuffers, they would be terrific, I think, for employees, if you're the head of a company, or maybe your co-workers. Give them to every member of your Sunday school class or your Bible study group or your men's group or small group. And one of the reasons I suggest that is because this book was designed not only to be a great book for you to read personally, just for yourself, but to be a study guide, to be a book that you could use in group study, maybe in a small group. At the end of every chapter, there are 4 or 5 just thought questions to kind of let you reflect on what that chapter was about, and to make an application of it. Because this is not a book that is designed just to totally entertain you, although, quite frankly, I think it will. But it's to make you think, to make you sort of step back and evaluate what matters in life. And I can't think of anything that we need to do more from time to time than take stock in our lives and see, how's it going? I mean, let me ask you something. Do you ever now and then, if you have a 401k plan or retirement, do you ever look to see how it's doing to make sure that when you retire that you're going to have enough money to live on? I mean, most people will do that. Check out your annuity program or your stock portfolio, or maybe just look at your bank account and see if you can pay your rent this month. I mean, that makes sense, right? Well, doesn't it make sense to take a look at your life inventory? Not just to see what you have on earth, but maybe to see, what are you compiling for heaven? What is it that you're doing that's going to live beyond your lifetime? And I do think that's important. Let me go back to some questions. From Matthew, he says, do you think that everyone needs to find passion in a career? Boy, I sure do, Matthew, and that's a great question. And boy, that's one that really connects to this book, because I like to remind people in the book that it's important to do something that you love, that you are passionate about. I can't think of anything that to me is more tragic than a person who would spend his or her entire life and career doing something that you hated. Now, some people will do things that'll make them a lot of money. Some people will do things that they love. If you can find something that you love and that makes you a lot of money, then you are blessed indeed. But if you can only have one or the other, making money or finding something that is fulfilling, something that meets your passion, then I'm going to tell you without any hesitation, the money will never equal the joy of doing something that you like to do. So please, no matter what, don't spend decades of your life punching a clock doing something that basically bores you to death or makes you hate getting up in the morning. And I hope that when you read this book, it'll give you not just a sense of how important it is to make those better decisions, but some practical advice on how do you get there. Because quite frankly, if all I do is to tell you, yeah, you need to live your life differently, but there's not some practical insights into how, then I may not have done you a great favor. Hey, I'm finished with the first part of the stack. Look, this could be in your book right here. See all these I finished? That could be yours, but you got to order it. I'm not sending it to you without you asking. And if you want to know how to do it, it's premiercollectibles.com/Huckabee. It's there on your screen, and you can order your copy when you want it. And I said before, I'll say it again. Great Christmas idea, right? All right. Let me pick another question here. Here was a great one from Mary. What was the strangest thing about transitioning from governor to citizen? Probably having to learn to drive myself places. I know that sounds silly, but you know, for a good bit of a time as lieutenant governor and in all my time as governor, somebody else was hauling me around, the state police of Arkansas. And so, you know, in a way, one of the most interesting things was getting back behind the wheel of a car. My kids, all grown, of course, but they all said, "Dad, you got to learn to drive better." Well, I'd been out of the practice for a while. I think I do quite well. That kind of hurt my feelings, to be honest with you. But I think just the whole idea of independence, you know, when you're governor, you don't go anywhere alone, nowhere. You want to go to Walmart, you call a trooper, he takes you. And he stands around while you do your shopping. You want to go to dinner, you call over at the guard shack at the governor's mansion, and a trooper swings by, picks you up, and takes you. And frankly, it's one of those things you transition from, but my wife and I have enjoyed the independence. But having said that, I will forever be grateful to the incredible people that we were blessed to work with, who were the Arkansas State Troopers who took care of our family for almost 11 years when we lived in the governor's mansion. Professional, gracious, and forever cherished by their service and memories, and thankful for what they did for us. All right, let's see. Here's one. How do we handle the national debt? This comes from someone who shares my name, Michael. Well, Michael, how we handle it is we got to pay for it. Now, how do we do that? Simple answer is we quit spending money we don't have. We stop borrowing money we can't afford to pay back. That's the same way you live your life. And the federal government needs to be on that same discipline that every one of us have to be on. I'm very involved in the balanced budget amendment movement. That's to get a constitutional amendment that would require Congress to balance the budget. I think that's probably the only way they'll ever do it. But I also would tell you that from a practical standpoint, raising taxes is not the answer, and just making massive cuts would be very, very hurtful to a lot of people. So the best way, grow the economy. And I know this may sound simple to some people, but it's really true. the simple best way for us to get our economic situation in better shape is what we're seeing happen. And that's a growth of the economy itself, a growth in what's called the gross domestic product, or GDP. And the more we see that, the better it gets. Let's see here what else we've got. So a lot of questions coming in, and I'm grateful for that. Keep sending your questions in. Let's see, is there a special place they need to, I guess if you're watching, there's a space to do that, right? They can just put it on there, so there we go.
They can order and ask a question when they order.
Oh, I see. You ask a question when you order the book. Love that. So premiercollectibles.com/Huckabee, and right this very second, I may be signing the book plate for your book. Here's an interesting question. Were you naturally charismatic, or is it something that you honed? Did it come from watching a family member at a young age, or do you think it was inherent? Well, first of all, thank you for thinking that I have some charisma. I don't know that I think I do, but I will say this to you, Gail. It might surprise you, but I was an incredibly shy young man, scared to death of people and crowds. And it may even surprise you to know that I'm still very, very nervous when I get in front of groups of people. I know that seems weird because that's what I do for a living. I get in front of groups of people. I've spent most of my adult life in front of people. It's God's ultimate sense of humor to me. Maybe it's God's retribution. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll ask him when I get there. But nobody is more surprised of what I do than me. I grew up very poor, South Arkansas. I am the first male in my entire family lineage to ever graduate high school. No male upstream from me biologically had ever finished high school. Not my father, grandfather, great-grandfather, or anyone else upstream. And I think because of that, I grew up kind of believing that maybe I just wasn't as good as the other kids. I wasn't qualified. I wasn't fit to be where many of them were, who had nice homes and nice cars and nice clothes. I didn't grow up with that stuff. And even to this day, I tell people all the time, when I go to speak at events, which is a lot, several times a week in many cases, I sometimes am required to sit at the head table because I'm making a keynote speech. But to be very honest with you, I've got a lot more in common with the people working in the kitchen than I do the folks at the head table. I had to learn how to sit at a head table. I totally understood how to be the guy working in the kitchen. So in some ways, when I wrote this book, it was a great reminder for me to kind of look back in my life and see where I'd come from and what were those values that shaped me, what mattered, what was an important part of helping me put my life together. I think that that's something that not just I ought to do, I think it's something every person ought to do. So maybe that's something you would find useful and benefit from as you read the book, Rare, Medium, or Done Well. This is from Patrick. Says, did you get nervous before your presidential debates? What were those like? You know, I guess I was nervous, and yeah, I guess the answer was yes. But what I did before was different than what some people do. Some people spend their every moment right up until the second they walk out on the stage trying to remember every issue and carefully planned lines that they want to say. I found that the best way I could prepare was to just be me, to get away, to maybe take a run, to go do something that took my mind completely off all the issues. The day of a debate, I never watched 1 second of television. I didn't want to hear all the noise. And I would spend that day doing everything but trying to fill my head up with answers to potential questions. Because I wanted to go out on that stage and just be me. Listen carefully to the questions, answer them honestly, and when it was over, walk away having said, you know, I didn't try to be so overly coached and prepared. I wanted to be authentic. I wanted to give honest answers to the questions, and I hope I did. And you can see where it landed me. I'm sitting here in Nashville, Tennessee, signing book plates to try to get people to buy a book, for heaven's sakes, instead of sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania. So maybe that didn't work out as well as I thought it did. I'm being facetious. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I never wanted to go on the debate stage and come across like I was a robot. And I've seen people, you have too, that as soon as they were asked a question, they basically ignored what they were asked, and they went into some pre-programmed answer, and it was almost like you could just see them reading the answer off the back of their head. And frankly, I'd rather lose an election than I had to lose my sense of who I am and to be authentic. That's a key message of this entire book. Getting elected to something, that's not the measure of one's life, any more than having a big bank account is the measure of one's life. The measure of one's life is God happy with the way you've lived it? When He evaluates it, what's His view? And that's why if you live your life and the final verdict is it's rare, meaning it's not finished, you left a lot of things undone that should have been done, your bank account can't make up the difference. And if you live your life medium, which means mediocre, not bad, but not really that good, you could have done much more, but you just didn't. Was it fear? Was it sloth? I don't know. I mean, that's something that I think the book will help you to sort through for your own life. You don't have to jump up in the family room and announce what you've discovered. But if you're living a life that is only mediocre, it's not too late to make the change so that you can start living your life, and at the end, your life will be one that will be judged, well done. That's how it's supposed to be. Let's see, there's something else we're supposed to do. I think, you want to do the questions? You got some rapid fire questions you want to fire at me?
Yes.
This is Eric, right?
Yes.
Eric is here. You can't see him, but I can. He's actually here. He's not a ghost. He's not a phantom. And Eric's got a bunch of questions, and he's going to fire them at me. These are like quick ones, right? Is that what you want to do? Okay.
Where were you born?
I was born in Hope, Arkansas.
Who would you want to play you in a movie?
Probably my look-alike, Brad Pitt. Ha ha ha.
What was your first job?
Well, my first job officially was working at the radio station at Hope KXAR, but I had a lot of jobs before then. Before I could go and get a real, paycheck at age 14, I caught chickens, which is horrible. And let me tell you now, if you ever want to be motivated to do better in life, be an 8-year-old kid and go catch chickens all night long and stuff those things into wooden crates on a hot August night in Arkansas, and you'll spend the entire night thinking, what must I do to be able to get a job other than this? It was a wonderful motivator. So I hauled hay, I collected pop bottles, I did a lot of stuff, but my first real job was working at the radio station.
What is your biggest fear?
Probably going out on stage with my pants unzipped. How's that? That's probably a big fear I got, yeah.
Who makes you laugh the most?
I love clean comedians that make me laugh because they're really funny. Shonda Pierce makes me laugh. Bone Hampton is another great Christian comedian who makes me laugh. And there's so many of them. We've got a guy that works with my show here on TBN named Rick Roberts. He is a spot-on Barney Fife. He makes me laugh. So there's a lot of people that do, but here's what I like in humor. I want people to make me laugh because they're funny, not because they're filthy, and I laugh in self-defense.
What is the one thing you need in your fridge at all times?
Ooh, first thing I need in my fridge at all times, Coke Zero.
What is your greatest accomplishment?
Let me have some right now. My greatest accomplishment, raising 3 kids who love God and who are decent human beings. I think that's the greatest accomplishment of all.
Who is the most interesting person you have met recently?
Wow. You know, one of the things, I do this television show on TBN, Trinity Broadcasting, and if you're not watching it, shame on you. Every Saturday, Sunday at 8 and 11 Eastern, 7 and 10 Central. So there's a plug for the show. But I get to meet some incredibly interesting people. But I met a guy a week ago when we did our veteran show. And this guy impressed me. His name is Woody Johnson. He is a 95-year-old World War II veteran, and he earned the Congressional Medal of Honor. And I tell you, anytime I'm around these guys who earned a Medal of Honor, I feel incredibly small and insignificant. And here was a guy with such energy and vigor at age 95, amazing. But the heroics of this individual, he gave me my freedom and he gave you yours. I don't ever want us to forget these folks. So my heroes in life are not well-known politicians, and I enjoy meeting celebrities and musicians and actors, and that's all fine. But the people that just blow me away and the ones that I feel totally humbled in the presence of are veterans who have served to give me freedom.
What is your middle name?
Dale, D-A-L-E.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
People who are slow at the TSA lines at the airport. Because I fly 4 or 5 days a week and I'm at airports all the stinking time, and people who somehow get in the pre-check line and don't have a clue what that means, that is a pet peeve. Hate to go off on it, but I'm telling you, don't get in front of me at the airport if you're not prepared to put your junk on the conveyor belt. Get it done.
What is the last book you read?
Ooh. I read a book by John Lennon's sister, and it is all about life growing up in Liverpool, England. Great book. And it was called Imagine This. And it's a wonderful book. Not one that you've probably ever heard about, but I got to meet her. Her name is Julia, and I met her this summer when I was in Liverpool, spent a little time talking with her, and I found her book to be just extraordinary. I don't know if you guessed this or not, I'm kind of a Beatles fan.
What is your favorite hobby?
Ooh, wow. I love to play music, but I also love to hunt and fish. So those would be, I can't just single it out, it's got to be all of them.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure. Ice cream. I hope my wife's not watching. I haven't had ice cream, I don't know when. I have no idea when I've had any.
Do you have any hidden talents?
I don't even have any observable talents, much less hidden talents. What are you talking about?
What color is your toothbrush?
It's a white toothbrush. It's a Philips Sonic Care. I know which color it is because of that, yeah.
What is your secret snack?
Secret snack. It's not one I should enjoy a lot. Potato chips.
How do you take your coffee?
With sweet and low.
What is the last movie you saw in theaters?
In a theater? Oh, wow. It's been a while since I've been to the theater. I love movies, but I just don't have time. I was home 4 nights the entire month of October. 4 nights. So, gosh, it's been a while. I'm trying to think. I saw, wow, what was it? I don't remember. That's how bad it is. I just don't remember seeing one at a theater.
What is the last gift you gave?
The last gift I gave? I gave a gift to help hurricane victims who suffered through Hurricane Michael, and I gave it through Samaritans Purse, an organization I really love and so appreciate not only the level of what they do for people, but the efficiency with which they do it. So that was the most recent one.
And that does what cause is dear to your heart?
Samaritans Purse, probably first and foremost, is my own local church. I love my church. I love my pastor. And, I believe that every believer should, as a minimum, tithe to his or her church. And then you give your offerings over and above that. And then you serve. My wife and I are both active. My wife serves on our safety team, and I drive a golf cart in our church parking lot and help direct traffic. which may surprise some people, surprise people when they come to our church and they see me driving a golf cart or directing cars. But I think it's because my pastor thinks it's the only thing I'm competent to do, and he may be right.
What is number one on your bucket list?
Wow, I got a lot of things I still got to check off. You know, I've done a lot of stuff on my bucket list. Let me think of something that is actually on that bucket list. I want to go to more of the great World War II battlefields in Europe because I've been to Normandy and I've been to some of the places where the Battle of the Bulge took place, and those touch me and they inspire me and they humble me. So I think I want to go to some more of those.
And lastly, where do you want to go that you've never been?
I'd like to go to the northern part of Norway and see the northern lights because my wife really wants to do that. We've been to Norway. I've been there a couple of times, and she's been there once with me, but it was not at a time when the northern lights were visible, and so that's something I'd like to do so that she will be happy and cross that off her bucket list. Okay. I'll take a couple of more questions, and I'm getting the sign here that we're needing to wrap up. So what was the worst day during your time as governor? This is from Derek. I'll tell you, that was the day that any day that I had to carry out an execution. There were quite a few of those, and I hated them because of all the decisions that I ever made as a governor. All of them could be reversed. Another governor could come in and change them. It was the one decision that I made that was irrevocable, and it was not something that I could take any pleasure in. It was carrying out the law that I'd been entrusted to do. But I always will say to people when I hear them say, well, I believe in capital punishment, and I could sure do it. Well, be careful how bold you are in saying that, because it's one thing to pop off about what you would do, but when you have to put your name on that certificate that puts in motion a process that will end a person's life because the court has ordered it, I'm going to tell you something. I hope it's sobering to you, and if it isn't, you shouldn't do it. Well, got to keep going for just a couple of minutes because that's a dismal way to end this. Let me just remind you, the book is Rare, Medium, or Done Well. And just to remind those who may be just joining us in the last few minutes, the book is not a recipe book. So if you're looking for some great recipes, there's some really wonderful cookbooks out there. This is not it. This book is about the recipe for life. It's about evaluating whether or not you're living your life with a sense of urgency, with a sense of purpose, and that when at the end of your life, how will people say you've lived it? Will they say, he was a guy that just didn't get things finished. His life was not quite fully cooked. It was rare. Or will they say, he didn't really do anything terrible, but he didn't do anything significant. His life was mediocre. Or will people say, now there's a guy who lived life to its fullest. His was a life done well. And in the Bible, Jesus says of us that the greatest thing to be said of the way we live our life is that at the end, God says, well done, good and faithful servant. If you live your life that way, so that that's what he says, and hopefully even other people recognize it, then you will have lived a life that you made the most of. And that's really what the book is about. Again, it is not a cookbook, neither is it a political book. And that's why, as I said at the beginning, it has been endorsed by people as diverse as Van Jones, who is about as far left from me as a person can get, but then from folks like Star Parker and Tony Perkins and Rick Santorum and Rick Scarborough and so many other people, Matt Staver, all who have endorsed this book. Most of them are Christian believers who love the message of it and love the fact that it isn't a political book. One more reminder, you can get the book at premiercollectibles.com/Huckabee. Now, when I say you can get the book, you can get an autographed book, and that's what I've been doing. I've been autographing book plates to go in your book. So hopefully that's what you've been doing, is you've been ordering books the whole time I've been talking and signing. And I hope you bought more than one. I hope you bought a bunch of them for friends and family and employees and people you'd like to make your friend, and this book will hopefully do that. But I want to say thank you so very much for joining me for this Facebook Live webcast, giving me the opportunity just to have an informal chat with you, to tell you about the book, answer some of your questions, and hopefully get you interested in the message of the book. Quite frankly, if all you do is buy the book and put it on the shelf, you will not have complimented me at all. If you buy the book, and I believe if you read the first chapter, I don't have to ask you to read the rest of them. I truly believe you read chapter 1, you'll stay up and read the rest of them. No doubt in my mind. And when you do, if at the end you say, I want to live my life so that at the end people say, that's a life done well, then we're all happy. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving and a wonderful Christmas, and it'll be a lot better if you get the book. God bless.